Welcome to another episode of Wiltfong's Whiparound. I'm Steve Wiltfong, and this is my 24/7 Sports colleague wearing similar golf shirts, national analyst Gregory Biggins, coming to us live from Raisins Country there in LA. And you and I obviously were covering recruiting in the Pete Carroll era, and we saw what USC was like then. And I remember Mark Richt telling me when I went and visited him down at Florida, if it's been done before, or excuse me, at Miami, if it's been done before, it can be done again. And so that was his aim at Miami. He wasn't able to accomplish that. But the next USC coach is going to be coming in with some great expectations. What kind of recruiting class do you think he's going to have? What kind of 2022 recruiting class do you think the new coach at USC is going to inherit, particularly at the top?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have no idea who that head coach is going to be, so it's hard to speculate who's going to stay and who's going to go. And that was a good quote by Coach Rick. I'm going to use that one of these times. But I mean, obviously, Southern California. I always say this, man. USC kind of recruits itself in this sense. You're first or second for every kid in Southern California when the recruiting starts with these kids, freshman, sophomore year. You still need to put the work in, right? You can't just be lazy and throw your name out there and all of a sudden expect kids to come. We've seen it doesn't always work, but if you do put the work in, you're automatically in pole position before the recruitment starts up. So USC is always going to have a good class. Obviously, you know, you and I, we talked to a handful of kids yesterday, and every kid I talked to had the same exact spiel. Still love USC, still committed, want to wait and see who the new head coach is going to be. I know it's going to be a great hire. And obviously every kid I talked to from Southern California said, I want them to keep Dante Williams. I want that to be, whether he's the head coach, whether he's, you know, still the DB coach / assistant head coach. So I think as long as Dante's around and you keep him recruiting, and just, well, me and you will throw out a name out there, right? How about Luke Fickell? If that's the head coach, doesn't have any West Coast ties, so he might have to keep a guy like Dante. And if he does, I think that's a pretty dynamic combination. You have a great football coach who's already been established as a winner. You keep Dante in there to keep that recruiting momentum going. And I think that could be scary for some Pac-12 teams. I already talked to a few schools, and I'll tell you what, man, Luke Fickell is one guy they do not want to see at USC because he's so respected as a football coach.
I'll tell you this about Luke Fickell. I went and visited him at Cincinnati, and one thing he said to me that really stuck out, Greg, was the head coach has to be the best recruiter on the staff. And every place that he worked, the head coach was the best recruiter, whether that was Jim Tressel or Urban Meyer, and he's taken that model to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's had the #1 group of 5 recruiting class the last 2 cycles. They've obviously been the #1 group of 5 team on the field, and they have an excellent football team this year, a top 10 team going into Indiana this week. They got Notre Dame down the road. They got a terrific non-conference schedule to maybe put them in position to make a college football playoff if they run the table more so than last year. And so Luke Fickell's kind of in that mold of a Mario Cristobal, in my opinion, of being an electric head coach recruiter, a guy that not only does his part in trying to recruit the kids, but is very big in watching the film and getting the players right on the board that can help you play championship level football. And then Luke Fickell in his own right, when he was on those Ohio State staffs, he was one of the best recruiters in the country that went into places like Florida and Georgia and won some heavyweight battles. And so he would be an off the charts recruiting hire for USC if they can get him. Greg, let's talk about a few DBs. Let's talk about Zion Branch.
Okay.
We have crystal ball to Ohio State, but it seemed like the family was giving every opportunity for USC to make a run here. Where do you think things stand there now that there's, you know, a lot of questions with the program moving forward? And then also Damani Jackson, 5-star player who's been committed to USC since the spring, or I don't even know if it was spring yet. And then Gentry Williams is a defensive back who loves Damani Jackson from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Do you have any vibe on those guys? And I can chime in on Gentry too.
I'll let you chime in on Gentry. I think I have a crystal ball for him. Zion Branch, I kind of almost, I felt like you bullied me a little bit on that one with Ohio State. I felt nervous, Steve. I didn't want to get left behind. I'm only playing
Ohio State for months. Like, it's a great spot for him. Not even that visit, you know?
Yeah. After that visit, I was hearing that, hey, it's imminent. You better get this in quick. And so it was a panic. It was a panic crystal ball. But I know Zion. I didn't talk to him, but I know him well enough. I know the family well enough to know this. just like with Domani, they're very interested in USC. Domani's locked in, I think, unless something happens. But I think with Zion, I think he still likes USC quite a bit. And I think he's going to patiently wait. And I'm that guy when it comes to a coaching change. I'll never dance on someone's grave, and I'm not going to ever. I hate even use the word fire. I like to say he was let go. It just sounds nicer. I say that to say this: whoever they bring in, right, and not to be mean, but it's probably going to be a head coach with a little bit more. What's the word? Maybe a little more cachet, a little more track record than Clay Helton. So if you committed when Clay Helton was there, if now all of a sudden you have a whoever. A Luke Fickell, even if it's I don't even know, Chris Peterson.
Eric Bieniemy was a guy.
Dude, I'm an EB guy. I just saw, it was Adam Schefter. I just saw him put that out there. I don't hate that at all. I like EB a lot. I mean, he would be dynamic in LA as a head coach, play caller. Who else? Urban Meyer. I don't see it happening, but whoever, right? Whoever it's going to be a guy with a more proven track record than Clay. And then you combine that with all the natural advantages. So I think for me, the timing, Steve, a lot of these guys are early grads. Zion is, Domani is. So if you're going after a guy like Luke Fickell, don't mean to keep hammering that over and over and over again, but say they are a playoff team. They're playing into January, right? So early signing period is December. That's when Domani and that's when Zion want to go ahead and get this locked up. Do they wait until February just to see who the head coach is? Or do they say, you know what, if you're Zion, I love Ohio State. I'm going to go to Ohio State because that's where I want to be anyway. With Domani, again, I got the vibe that he's still 100% locked in with USC. He loved his Michigan trip. I mean, he, was really gushing about that more than I expected. Dad is a Michigan fan. Mom was an Ohio State fan, but he said, dude, Mom was on board, man. She was buying some Michigan gear. So that was huge to get Mom on board. Alabama will get a visit from Domani. It's those three schools, but I still believe his first choice is USC if everything, plays out well. And again, Dante Williams is his guy, just like he's Zion's guy. So without talking to Zion, I can almost guarantee what he would say. It's like USC, want to wait and see who the new head coach is going to be.
Talking to some of the kids around the Alabama program, there was a time where they felt good about their position with Domani, and then I think that they felt like that's cooled off a little bit. Obviously, just took that visit to Michigan. It's hard for me to imagine a USC football program moving forward without Dante Williams, regardless of what happens, unless he elects to go somewhere else, unless he gets a tremendous opportunity with another program that he's almost kind of like, if he doesn't win this job, it's hard for me to not imagine him with USC moving forward. Gentry Williams is taking his official visit to Oklahoma this weekend. USC for sure was the leader after his official visit, but as things settle down, and I think that Oklahoma has reemerged and made things interesting, and Oklahoma's got a lot of juice to their program as well right now. Speaking of juice, you saw one of the more electric receivers in the country last week, and Luther Burden, East St. Louis, comes out to your neck of the woods and takes on St. John Bosco, and really showed a lot of grit and toughness in that ball game, and played them all 48 minutes. And Luther Burden was the best prospect on the field in that one, or one of them. Him and Mateo Uagalele were kind of the two that on a field with great players. Ernest Green, those two really flashed to me. Mm-hmm. Luther Burden, my crystal ball's on Georgia. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What did you pick up out there?
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm kind of a more conservative crystal baller. You're probably the best we have in terms of getting out early, and you're right, 99 of 100 times. If he was deciding tomorrow, I definitely sounds like Georgia. He said that's the one trip he knows he's going to take. He's talking to Missouri and Oklahoma. He kind of just said, yeah, I'm talking to him a little bit. So it almost sounded like it was more Missouri, UGA, got more of a Georgia vibe. He was super good. And we'll talk about the good and the bad, right? The bad was talking to the Boston coaches before the game. They're like, we can always tell when the ball is going to him and when it's not. Because when it's not, he doesn't really try too hard. He doesn't really go out and bust his butt on a route. He's not really going to be a willing blocker. But when the ball's in his hands, when the route's for him, one guy on that staff told me in my 19 years of high school football, he's the best player he's ever played against. And I was like, 19 years. And he go, dude, our Bosco DBs, we have some dudes here. And he made them look like little kids. And I mean, I was trying to think of a good player comp, as we always do, right? That's kind of our thing. Who's this guy remind you of? And I couldn't find a good one. He was our alpha dog, I want to say, at Future 50. So it wasn't like a fluke, right? This wasn't like a fluke. But he looks like a college guy right now. Had one drop, but strong hands, catches the ball well through contact. I mean, he's getting the ball, breaking tackles, straight arming guys, shows a little bit more dynamic speed than I expected. Kind of thought maybe the knock was, not a burner, but he runs well. I mean, he's turned the corner on the punt return for a touchdown, and he was flying down the field. So I think he does have a dog mentality. May not go hard every play, but when he does decide, man, he is a tough competitor. And I'm a huge fan, man. I think he definitely justified his ranking as a top 20, 25 player that we have him right now. And as number 4 receiver, I mean, he might even be a little bit higher than that.
Well, the number 1 receiver in the country, Greg, Evan Stewart, is part of a big group of prospects that's visiting Florida this weekend. You saw Evan Stewart in the same setting as Luther Burden, under the Under Armour Future 50. We were there together. How massive of a pickup would he be for Florida? I think Florida's in an excellent spot for Evan Stewart. He definitely named him his leader at Future 50. He's made some rounds since then, but I don't know if anyone's overtaken the Gators yet for Evan Stewart. How big would he be big for Florida?
He'd be huge. And it was funny, the same Bosco coach who told me, he goes, he's number 4 for you guys. Who's number 1? And I go, well, you got to see this kid from Texas. I mean, he's got a little extra juice to him. I mean, if there's one thing about Burden, like I said, he runs well for me. But is he ever going to be that 4-3 guy? I don't know. But Evan Stewart has got serious juice. He's the guy who can make, 4 or 5 guys miss and he's gone. He's a true deep threat. He's after the catch, body control. Like I said, Luther was our alpha dog, but in terms of the best receiver during the drills and during even the 7-on-7, Evan Stewart was special. He's got some really unique qualities. And again, for us ranking, and everyone knows this or should, it's a long-term NFL draft comp. And Evan Stewart just looks like the kind of guy, right? Maybe, that guy who goes out, has a dominant 3-year career, he'll light up the combine, and he is a number 1 wide receiver at the NFL level. I mean, I think he would be super, super special for the Gators if they do land him.
Well, it's Florida versus Alabama. I think Alabama's in the thick of that one for Evan Stewart too. So tremendous opportunity for Dan Mullen and his staff to make a statement there. Walter Nolan, the number 1 overall player in the country, he's going to be at the game. Florida for sure led for him coming out of the spring into the summer. Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Tennessee, obviously, Michigan. He was at Michigan last week. Those schools are in the thick of it, but Florida, an opportunity to really remind Walter Nolan what he loved so much as he returns there. Chris McClellan is another young man who at one point was an Ohio State lean. Now you got Florida, Oklahoma, and Alabama in the thick of that one. He's going to visit Alabama later on an official when they play Tennessee. So we'll see what kind of impression Florida can make as they're going head to head for guys like that. But so many young guys coming into this game as well. So many young blue chippers. So this is the biggest game from a recruiting standpoint of the Dan Mullen era. And you'll want to stay locked to 24/7 Sports and Swamp 247 for more on that building up to the game. But I thank you, Greg, for coming on and talking on this week's episode of Wiltfong's Whiparound. And we'll see y'all on 24/7 Sports Network moving forward.